This is BBC 5 Live.
It's 10 o'clock. Good morning, this is Anna Foster on 5 Live. First this morning, a leading charity has told this programme that a growing number of British couples are looking to Ukraine to help them become parents. It's one of the few countries in the world where you can pay a surrogate. But there are concerns about how some of these agencies operate and whether or not everybody involved is getting a fair deal out of it. We'll hear from a mum who's been through the system. First of all, let's talk about the often controversial area of overseas surrogacy, when couples who can't have children arrange to go abroad and pay someone to carry their child. Now, the leading charity involved in helping people broker arrangements like that has told this programme that Ukraine is emerging as a new market for overseas surrogacy. Ukraine has a population of only 42 million people, but it features alongside the US as one of the most popular surrogacy destinations for British parents. It raises questions, of course, on how Ukrainian surrogacy agencies work and whether everyone involved is getting a fair deal out of it. Now, in the UK, surrogacy arrangements are altruistic. You can't do it for money. But in the Ukraine, one of Europe's poorest countries, women can earn up to £14,000 to have someone else's child. Anna, not her real name, was 21 when she became a surrogate.
You don't realise this at the beginning, but later, when you get to know the parents, when you see their emotions and feelings, when they're crying and thanking you, you feel how much you've done for them. From the surrogacy, I made about $500 a month. And if you take into account all the payments, including for clothes and for relocation and preparation, then it adds up to $20,000. Those who are preparing to take part should be very careful from the start in the clinic and agency. You read reviews from those who've gone through the programme and find out about their reputation and if there were any negative cases in the way they were treated.
Well, let's talk about this with Julia Osiewska, who's the director of New Hope, a surrogacy agency in Kiev. Good morning.
Hello.
Sam Everingham is from Families Through Surrogacy, a Sydney-based charity that advises would-be parents. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Anna.
Hi. And Stacey Owen used a Ukrainian surrogate to have her twins in June. Hello, Stacey.
Hi, Anna.
Talk me through your story, first of all. How are they doing, by the way, your twins?
Oh, they're doing really well. They're 4 months now and they're very happy and peaceful babies. They're just wonderful.
You sound full of energy, considering you've got twins that are so small.
Yeah, I actually had a really rough night last night and only had an hour's sleep. But,
well, you're hiding it really well. Take me back to how you... Well, in fact, take me right back to the beginning, Stacey. How did you come to be looking for a surrogate in the first place?
Well, I had 12 years of infertility, recurrent miscarriage, and had all the treatments and drugs and still was unable to carry. And I knew years ago about the surrogacy in India, but then since obviously that's now illegal. So 12 years on, 3 years ago, I did more research on the basis that it probably wasn't going to happen naturally for me. And Ukraine or America was really the only options. And so...
Why was that? Why did it come down to Ukraine or America? Just the only places where you could get it done?
Well, where you could pay somebody, right. where you could pay a surrogate and be sure and have that guarantee that you were going to be able to take your baby home. Because obviously here in the UK, that's just not guaranteed, is it? Ukraine's 3-hour flight. Ukraine's a hell of a lot cheaper than America. And the whole process is very different. America... almost similar to England in the sense of you find your surrogate, you form a relationship. There's things that you have to do and yet there's more involvement, whereas the Ukraine, because commercial surrogacy is legal, it's more of a business transaction. And so we didn't actually find a surrogate. We went with a clinic that was an all-inclusive guaranteed package, so they found the surrogate for us.
How did you find the clinic?
Well, actually, I Googled and there weren't many, 2-3 years ago. Looking now, there are lots of clinics and there's lots of information about Ukraine. But 2-3 years ago, there was only 2 or 3 clinics. And the one I found had a lot of information, a lot of videos. And I spoke to the English manager across the course of a year, asking various questions. And so I was happy with them. And that's who I went with because they were the ones that had the most information at that time.
Yeah, you also talked about being, you use the word guarantee, and as we all know, there's never really a guarantee in pregnancy. So how does that work?
Well, the clinic that we went with an all-inclusive guaranteed package. So this means no matter what, you are going to come home with a baby. And now, if that took 5, 10, 15 attempts, you're coming home with a baby. That's how they worked. So it was guaranteed. So for me, for someone that's had, 10 miscarriages and 12 years of infertility, I was willing to pay that price and go through that process knowing that we were going to come home with our own babies.
Did it feel like a guarantee? Because when you've been through something like that, and it always feels so far away, once you'd signed up to it, were you convinced in your mind, in your heart, that it would happen like that?
Yeah, from the very beginning. Absolutely, yes.
And tell me about, because there are different packages that you can choose as well.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, our clinic had 3. You had economy, no longer available, standard, and VIP. All of them were guaranteed. All of them were, no limited attempts. I mean, unlimited attempts. The difference was really in accommodation and having a nanny or having additional medical costs paid. So we, at the time, were one of the few brave that went with economy, which basically was all-inclusive everything other than our flights. So all we had to do was pay for our flights to get there. We were always collected. We were always given accommodation. We were given food. We were taken to and from the hospital. We were taken to the passport office. Everything was done for us. Everything. Now, many other agencies and clinics don't work like that, but that's what we did.
And how often do you have to go across there?
Well, I went at 6 months to meet the surrogate face to face for our scan. But then we actually went before they were born. Many people just go when their babies are born. We actually went when our surrogate was 37 weeks gestation, because I was so worried they were going to come early, because a lot of twins do, and a lot of other people I know going through the process, their twins were born way before 36 weeks. So we actually arrived early, and our twins, miraculously, our amazing surrogate carried them for 39 weeks and 5 days, and they were born. They were a natural birth.
Really?
Yeah, and they were pretty big, huh? They were both over. My boy was nearly 4 kilos and my girl was just over 3. So we actually arrived there and we were waiting for 16 days for them to arrive.
And I mean, you talk about the way that the clinic organises everything. And do you have a relationship, any kind of relationship with the surrogate? Do you know who they are or have any contact with them?
Yeah, okay. So how it works is that within your contract or within the surrogate's contract there should be no direct contact. So that means that you shouldn't be in direct contact. It all goes through the clinic. So and up until 12 weeks, the clinic will not give you details of the surrogate, which is understandable because there are lots of miscarriages. It's common, and our first attempt didn't work. So you don't get the surrogate's details for 12 weeks. After that, you can be in contact. So, for example, in my case, we wrote to her after 12 weeks. She wrote back. For our 20-week scan, we had our first Skype session, and then I went to meet her at our 6-month scan, and then we saw her a week after the birth, and so we had contact throughout.
Did you prefer it that way?
Yeah, I wanted the choice, you see. This is the thing about England or America. There's this finding a surrogate and forming a relationship. There's that necessity to do that. Whereas we didn't want to do that. We wanted the option. We didn't want to have to be involved in that if we didn't want to. But as it turns out, we were in contact, and we remain in contact with a surrogate to this day.
Had she been a surrogate before, or is she likely to do it again? Is it something that she does a lot?
No. So on our package, it wasn't. It would be a first-time surrogate. And she was only 20 when when they did the transfer. She's 21 now. So it was her first time. That all the surrogates have children. She had a 2.5-year-old son. And actually I asked her why she was doing it, and she said that she was doing it for the money and to buy her and her son a home. And I did actually ask her whether she would do it again, and she said she wasn't sure, but she needed some time to recover. So
Yeah, well, that's understandable. Liz has sent a text in, and she says, as soon as I heard having a surrogate birth being described as a package, I had to switch off. Mm-hmm. Do you ever get that? People who are concerned about the commercial element of it?
I see people's concerns because I'm in surrogacy support groups on social media, so say Facebook, and I see that people have those concerns. I didn't have those concerns. I still don't, and I did ask our surrogate when we was able to how she was treated, because there are lots of stories going around, and you do hear other people's nightmare stories, and our surrogate told us that they treated her very well. In fact, they looked after her better than she looked after herself. I mean, they actually housed the surrogates towards the end of the pregnancy, and our surrogate was taken in on week 28. So she was in maternity housing, so this means they home them, they feed them, they scan them every week, they see a doctor every week. She was closely monitored and really looked after.
Anton in Cambridge says, how does a child born in Ukraine to a Ukrainian woman get UK citizenship?
That's down to you. So when you apply for your British passport, which is very complicated for surrogacy and took months to prepare before we went, you would not believe the amount of paperwork. We had 2 lever arch files for our twins to submit our passports, but within that passport application you have to prove your citizenship, so that's how they get their British citizenship through you.
Right, so they just have sole British citizenship, they're not joint nationals or anything like that? No. So ours have a British passport, obviously we're home, so they have British citizenship. Yeah. And Julia's listening to all of this. Julia, how many British couples do you have coming through your doors at the moment to do this?
At the moment, as of today, we have 11 British couples and 3 finalized this spring-summer. So, but there is definitely an increase, raise up numbers after India shut down. So definitely there is bigger amount of clients coming to Ukraine. British couples chose India before, but I know that there are a few clinics that work with British couples a lot. And I know about the clinic you were talking about. They do have a lot of British couples, yeah.
Mm. And do you do packages like the one that Stacey was talking about?
No, I can't. I do not believe in the idea of guaranteed package because this is something that you can't guarantee. This is pregnancy. Anything can happen. We've seen a lot during these years of work. There were miscarriages. There were later miscarriages, or for example, when you need to do delivery when the baby has genetic. For example, recently we had a heart defect of the baby. It was 17 weeks. So how can you guarantee that? It's just like a natural pregnancy. You can't guarantee. You don't know what's going to happen. So no, we do not have those packages. There is, of course, we provide, for example, help in surrogacy, or if you need egg donation, that's okay. We can also provide that, but definitely there is no guarantee in it. This is the health. You just can't guarantee that.
Where or how do you find your surrogates? Where do they come from?
They do come from different regions of Ukraine. The only thing we do not accept surrogate moms from Crimea or Donetsk region where the clashes are. So normally we prefer Kiev region. Vinnytsia is like middle of Ukraine, center of Ukraine, and closer to Kiev because she needs to come very often to Kiev. That's why the location, it is really, really important. So that's why we decided that it's better for us to have some regions that are closer to Kiev and it's easier to get to the city.
And what about the ages of the women you use as surrogates? What's the minimum age that you'll accept?
Minimum, it's 21, let's say from 21. But normally I would say that the surrogate moms are of 26, 27, 28. This is the age we actually like, because first of all, she's mature, she understands why she's doing this, and they have own children. So this is like a perfect age when you are 28, 27. It's a
So Stacey said that hers was 20. Would that be too young for you?
I can't comment on it because maybe she was mature, but it's better to.
But for you, for your agency, would if somebody came to you and said that they were 20, would you turn them away?
Through the psychologist, we would have a psychologist conversation because she needs to be mature. I don't know. I can't say. It depends because some of the women are 26, but they are not mature, and we need to turn them down. Some of them can be 21, but obviously understand why they are doing it. So I would say maybe it's too young, but anything can happen. Anything. I can't comment on it.
So you wouldn't rule it out. And
right.
One of the big things in surrogacy, of course, is that when a woman has carried a child, there is every chance that she will become attached to it. She might not want to give it away once she's given birth. Have you had any situations like that?
No, we didn't, because you work from the surrogate mom from the very beginning, and you tell them. So the thing is, I think it comes from the traditional surrogacy when there is a genetic link between the baby and the surrogate mom. But in Ukraine, it is banned. So that's why the surrogate mom, she understands when she goes into this process, she definitely understands, 100% understands that this is not her baby. She's just a carrier. And she, first of all, we always encourage not only couples to meet the surrogate moms, but the surrogate mom, it is very important for her to understand why she's doing it, for whom she's doing it. Really, it is very important. So that's why we prefer, and we surrogate moms meet, or at least Skype talk, anything just to help them know each other and why because it is important for her to understand for whom she's doing it. That's why it's easy even at the end to understand that she is giving the baby to the right and to the nice family that's actually willing to have this child. So no, we didn't have any kind of problems like that. But at the end, we are ready to it. There are psychologists that working with the surrogate moms. But no, they understand why they are doing it. So it's fine.
Sam, is that something that when you're advising parents or parents-to-be who are going down this route, is that something you have to maybe set them up for, the possibility that will happen?
You mean that the surrogate will want to keep the child?
Yeah.
No, look, it's very, very rare that this ever happens in surrogacy. It's a bit of a misunderstanding. People assume that surrogates may want to keep the child, even in countries like the UK and Australia, where the surrogate has a right to keep the child. We very, very rarely see that happening. And I think that's because they're going into it from the start with the knowledge that they're babysitting someone else's baby, and they've had their own families already. For them, it really is a mixture of altruism and getting something out of it. And whether it's a friendship with the couple or whether it's money, they really don't want to keep these kids. What tends to happen more often than not is, and the concern the surrogates have is, will the parents come to pick the child up? That's what they worry about.
Right. Yeah. So once they paid.
Yeah. I mean, we get some couples, it's rare, but some couples where they'll break up and they won't turn up for the birth because the couple sort of just hasn't survived the relationship, or someone's got sick, and that's the more common scenario you see.
Right. Has that happened with you, Julia?
No, the thing is that the surrogate mom doesn't want this child. It's not planned. So that's the thing. They just as they are afraid, the first question normally when the couple comes to Ukraine, they are afraid of it, that she will keep the child. But the first question from the surrogate is, will they take the baby? Because it's not her baby. She understands what she's doing and why she's doing this.
Mm. Stacey, was that a concern that you ever had in the process?
No, because the Ukrainian law doesn't allow for that to happen. And as Julia said, it's not genetically their child. And I know our surrogate, after speaking to her after, come the end, she was fed up. Can you imagine carrying twins to 39 weeks, 5 days? She was just, we were all like, when are they ever going to come? And, I did, throughout my communication with her, the one question I didn't ask her was, did she feel anything for them? Did she have any kind of any kind of love for them? And honestly, my feeling was, No, I mean, she was always... the first thing the surrogate would always be quick to tell you is they're fine, you know, I've had a scan, everything's fine. The first thing she wanted to do was reassure us that the babies were fine. And actually, at the end, she just wanted rid. I mean, she'd been
Which is unusual, because if you think about it, obviously the normal run of things is that when you have the child, that you do keep it, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, she'd been away from her son for 10 weeks, her own family, because the hospital was further out from where she lived. She hadn't seen her family for 10 weeks, so what a sacrifice. But no, I never worried about that at all.
Yeah. Sarah wonders on the text if you'd ever considered adopting in the UK.
That was a last resort for us. We wanted two things. We wanted a genetically linked baby. We wanted our baby. And second, we didn't want to go down the adoption route. That really was a last road for us. That's quite a hard route to go, and you don't know whether you're going to get a baby or whether you're even going to get a child. So that was kind of a last resort for us.
There are a couple of people asking as well. People are really fascinated in this, Stacey. They've got lots of questions that they're sending in on the text. It was interesting when Julia talked about, in one case, a surrogate carrying a baby that at 17 weeks of pregnancy was found to have a heart defect. Did you ever think about what would have happened if the child had been born disabled? Maybe would that just have been part of it for you? Would you have taken the child anyway?
I mean, that's a hard question, because I didn't really think about that. Obviously, throughout the journey, you have your concerns and you worry and you think, is everything okay? But, you know, after the 13, 14 weeks, they're so thorough. They do all of the tests we have in the UK. So we knew... You know, well, there was a high percentage that they were absolutely normal, because in every single scan they check every single organ. You get a report. They're checking continually.
So you're saying for you it's a hypothetical question because you didn't have that. Because I suppose what people are wondering is I think it boils down to at what stage does it feel like your baby? Does it feel like your baby babies? So from the start of the pregnancy, you feel like it's your child.
I think from when you get that first scan, you know, when we got our first scan, was the most emotional day, you know. From that moment, those babies are yours. They're not the surrogates. As Julia said, it's nothing to do with the surrogate. They're just the carrier. Those children are yours. Whether there's something wrong with it or not, you would deal with that as and when, if you had to, you would deal with that then.
Yeah.
I wouldn't... If a baby's born in the Ukraine, and like Julia said, that the surrogate worries the parents are not going to come and get it, because if the parents don't show up, that child's going to go into the care system. So, for you know, if there was a case, if there was something wrong with one of those babies, would we not come and collect it? Would we not want to know? No. We still would have gone after 12 years and 12 years of infertility and wanting a family. Am I going to turn around and say no because there might be something wrong with that baby? No.
Yeah.
No.
Di texts in as well from Maidstone and asks about the E word, exploitation. She says, if you've gone to somebody in a poor country and paid money for this, are you exploiting them?
No, it's their choice. We pay an agency. These surrogates know up front. What, you know, they know the terms, they know, like Julia says, they are given a whole range of tests. They're put through psychology, you know, they see a psychologist, they know the ins and the outs. They're adults. Our surrogate was 20, she was young. They're adults. Everyone makes their own decisions, you know, and as I said, in our case and our experience, there was no exploitation.
Yeah, and I'll just pitch in here, we've just done a study of 30 ultra-sick surrogates in the Australian context about how they found their journeys carrying for often people they didn't know, and the level of exploitation was actually higher in those unpaid surrogates than it was in studies with paid surrogates, just because they found it very hard to ask for expenses to be paid back. They found it hard to ask for the basic needs to be looked after because they were worried about the money that the parents were having to spend, and often those altruistic surrogates suffered a lot more, a lot more than they expected to.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? And Stacey, a final thought for you. Beryl in Gloucester text to say, no one can know the true feeling of being unable to have a baby unless they've been there. I had 2, I've now got 6 grandchildren. Good luck to these women who use surrogates. I'd much prefer the surrogate to be truthful and say, I'm doing it for the money. What choice do these women have?
Yeah. I agree. I mean, a lot of them are doing it for the money because there's never a chance they're going to have that baby. So they are doing it for the money. And what does, you know, in some people's minds, that's wrong. But that's just an opinion.
Thank you all three. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you, Stacey, and good luck. And I hope you get a bit of a nap later on today. At least Stacey Owen, who used a Ukrainian surrogate to have her twins who were born in June. Sam Everingham, who's from Families Through Surrogacy, a charity that advises would-be parents. And Julia Osiewska as well, who's the director of New Hope, one of those surrogacy agencies based in Kiev. And thank you for all of your thoughts as well. And questions. I always, if you send a question, I always like to try and put it to the person that we're talking to. So your thoughts, your experiences, if this is something that you've done, you've considered maybe, perhaps you're in the process at the moment, 85058 @BBC.